These are the warm-ups for Wednesday, this day 74. And so again, our first problem is asking us to find out how many, at the rate that they're giving in the graph, how much would 3.5 pounds of peaches end up costing. So let's take a look at what the graph's telling us. It says the graph shows the relationship between the weight, and the cost. Notice cost is on the y-axis, weight's on the x-axis. So when I look at the point they give us, I look at that, and the first number in the point tells us the x component, the weight. So I'm going to write down 8/10. I'm going to write down 8/10 pounds divided by, and then the 2 represents the cost, so $2. And so if I do it that way, that means I need to set up the other ratio exactly the same, because I'm coming up with an equivalent ratio. And they're asking, at this rate, how much would 3 5/10 pounds cost? So 3 5/10 has to go on top of the fraction. And the cost, well, we don't know that, so that's going to be the unknown. And so now we're ready to go ahead and solve, and so I'm going to cross multiply 8/10 times x, so 8/10 times x equals, and then 2 times 3 5/10. So off to the side I might have to write down 2 times 3.5. See what that is. That makes 10. And this is 6 and 1 makes 7, and I move the decimal over one space, so I've got 7. And now I need to divide by 8/10, and then I do that division and see what I get. So I'll move the decimal over one space, add the 0, so 8 into 70. And so it's going to end up going into 70 almost 9 times, but not quite. So 8 times makes 64. Do the subtraction, I'm left with 6. Now I've got to add a decimal point, bring it straight up, add a 0, bring it down. So 8 into 60 goes 7 times. That makes 56. And then I've got 4 left over, so I've got to do that division. And now I've got 8 into 40, which goes 5 times evenly. So the cost, x, is going to be $8.75. Take a look at our next one. It says the container has a capacity of 192 fluid ounces. How many cups does the container hold? So cups, how many cups are in a fluid ounce? So that's, or how many fluid ounces are in a cup, a better way to look at it though. And so there's 8 fluid ounces equals 1 cup. And so we're going to use that as a ratio. So I'm going to do 8 fluid ounces over 1 cup equals, and then I'm going to write the next as a ratio as well. And so the container holds 192 fluid ounces. So I'll put that on top. And then down below, I'm looking for the number of cups. That's what they're asking, how many cups. And so now we're ready to solve. So I'm going to multiply, diagonal, cross multiply. Makes 8x equals 1 times 192, makes 192, and then I divide. So I'm dividing 8 into 192, and I'll do that off to the side. And 8 goes into 19 2 times, makes 16 with 3 left over. And 8 goes into 32 4 times, so it does go in evenly. X is 24 cups, because that's what I was looking for. Well, the next one asks us to determine whether the 2 triangles are similar. So the first thing I'm looking at is the angles. So 18 and 18, I'm seeing if they're the same. 129, 129, 33, 33. So far so good. The angles are equal. Now I need to look at the sides and see if they're proportional. So 33, between 33 and 129 is 4. So 4 over, and then I look at 33 and 129 again on the other figure, and the number in between is 16. So I reduce that fraction, and it equals 1/4. So what this means is all of the corresponding angles need to equal 1/4. They all need to be in proportion with one another. So look at another set. Between 18 and 129 is 7. Between 129 and 18 is 28 in the other one, and that does also reduce down to 1/4. So that's good so far, but we don't know if they're proportional until we try them all. So between 18 and 33 is 10, and between 18 and 33 is 40 in the other triangle, and that reduces down to 1/4. So what we can say is, since they're all equal, all those ratios reduce to the same fraction, we can say these two figures are similar because of these two concepts. So let's take a look at them. Let's write them down what they are. Triangle ABC is going to end up being similar to triangle. And since I started with A, I need to start with the one that is also 18 degrees, which is F. And then I went to B, which is 129, so I have to go to E. And then I can do D. So make sure that you have the points corresponding the way you write them as you write down those letters that represent the points. So these two triangles are similar because the corresponding angles are equal, and the corresponding sides are proportional. And those are the key words that you have to use in order to explain why they are similar. So again, they have to have equal angles, equal corresponding angles, and proportional corresponding sides. And so that's the keys. Equal angles, proportional sides. And that's what we're looking for there. So that's the phrase you're going to need if your answer on your test is that they are similar. That's the phrase you'll want. So the next one gives us two similar figures, and we have to find the unknown length. So the unknown length is between D and E. So D and E are the first two letters that represent that triangle. So that means the first two letters that represent the other triangle are corresponding. So AB. So AB is 8. So I'm going to do X is to 8. And then I'm going to pick a side here. I'm going to pick 9. Now 9 is between E and F. So E and F are these two here. So I need to pick the last two, so B and C, which is 6. And then I can go ahead and cross multiply and solve. But before I do that, I'm going to take out a common factor. I'm going to divide this by 3, and so that'll make this 3. And divide this one by 3 as well, and that'll make it 2. And now I'll cross multiply. So I got 2x equals, and then I do 3 times 8. So that makes 24. And so now we're ready to solve. Divide by 2, and we get our answer of 12. So x equals 12. Now what are those units? Well, the two little lines represent inches. So 12 inches. Next one talks about the distance between Placerville and Fresno is 280 miles. If the scale on the map is 3 centimeters to 80 miles, what should the distance between the two cities on the map be? So let's go ahead and write out that scale. 3 centimeters is to 80 miles. I want to find out how many miles on the map it should be if the distance between these two towns is 280 miles. Now, since I've got miles on the bottom, I need to be consistent. I need to make sure miles is on the bottom, centimeters is on top. And we want to find out how many centimeters that is. So there's where my variable goes. So I go ahead and cross multiply. Multiply these two numbers as well. And so I've got 80x equals, and then I have to do 280 times by 3. And so that makes 24. Carry a 2, that makes 8, so 840. And so now we're ready to do some division. So I'll do the divide by 80 on both sides, and whenever you've got 0 at the end, that's like dividing by 10. So really I just need to do 8 into 84. So let's go ahead and do that. 8 goes into 8 one time with nothing left over, and 8 goes into 4 0 times. And so I'll add that decimal point, bring a 0 down, and do 8 into 40, and that goes 5 times. So 10.5 centimeters is the distance on the map that we'd want to draw it if we were drawing a map ourselves. And so there's number 5. Let's take a look at the last one here. It says Hooke's law states that the distance between a spring, the distance a spring is stretched, is directly proportional. So that means that we can write a proportion to the force applied. And so if a 15-pound weight stretches a spring 5 inches, so we have 5 in for inches, how much would the spring stretch if an 80-pound force was applied. Well, since I have pounds on top, I need to be consistent. And it says how many or how much will the spring stretch. I'm going to write down x inches because that's the distance they're talking about. And so now we're going to go ahead and reduce the fraction a bit. Divide this by 5 and divide this number by 5. Make the problem a little bit easier on ourselves. And so this becomes a 3 and this is a 1. And then we're ready to cross multiply. So 3x equals 1 times 80 is 80. And then we just divide by 3. And so off to the side we do 3 into 80. So 3 goes into 8. We have 2 times. And then we do 3 into 20 goes 6 times. And then we end up with a decimal point that ends up repeating. And so 3 goes into 20. We have 6 times, and that 6 is going to continue to repeat. So that's what the answer is going to be. So 26 2/3, or we could write it as 26 and 6 repeating inches. And that would be our answer there. So either one of those would end up working. Well, those are the answers for today's warm-up. Good luck.